Hola, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including BoJack Horseman, which we'll be getting into today. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'll be joined by Sam Quattro.
Hello.
And Michelle Anderer.
Hey.
You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com, and you can subscribe either to our general podcast feed or our BoJack Horseman-centric feed on iTunes or on your preferred podcatcher. There you'll be able to find discussion on previous episodes of BoJack's fourth season. But as for today, we will be discussing the sixth episode of season 4, titled "Stupid Piece of Shit." We will not be discussing anything concerning episodes following this one, and in advance, we are probably going to use a lot of profanity based on the dialogue in this episode and the title itself. So just prepare your ear holes for that one. But so. This one, I believe, is one of the more emotional episodes we've encountered thus far. So we might have a lot to talk about. We'll see. But first, let me just get your general impressions on the episode as a whole, like how it compares to the rest of the season we've seen so far, and how it just feels as a BoJack episode in general. Let's start with Sam. How do you feel just in general about this episode?
I think this episode is probably one of the better ones since episode 2, and that is, mostly to do with the internal monologue and the making fiends type scribble animation that accompanies it with BoJack. In terms of the actual plot, it's pretty, standard sort of BoJack, shenanigans, drinking, agent, manager, whatever stuff. So it was good for the what do you call it? The craftsman, experimental stuff that I tried to do, and I think it did successfully. But other than that, it was average.
Okay. Michelle, are you similarly lukewarm or a bit higher on it?
I actually really liked this episode, and like Sam said, the internal dialogue stuff and the animation change I thought was really, really fun and effective. Just hearing BoJack, just him beating himself up all the time, and it's being so hard to make a decision that wasn't awful and going to get drunk again, and thinking about why does he get drunk a lot so he doesn't have this internal monologue? Is that the reason? And just all that stuff was really, really good. And even just I'm happy to see them touching on Todd's asexuality more, because I think that's pretty great. And not a lot of shows really talk about ace stuff. And even just Diane talking about marriage. I thought there were a lot of really good standout moments, and just seeing BoJack interact with his mom more is really interesting and really kind of heavy. So this was a really good episode for that too.
Yeah, I thank you both for your opinions, because for me it touched a very personal chord, just because it from just the choice of song is already one that I associate very much with my depressive stages in the past, and the inner monologue is just stuff that I probably said verbatim at times. So well, the first time I watched it, I almost was gonna say best episode of the show, but just because it touched me that much. On rewatch, I think I lean with Sam that the old Sugarman Place, the second episode, I think is about on par with this episode, if not better. And I think some parts of this episode do drag, so that keeps it from being one of the best episodes of the show. But it definitely does touch on very deep themes. It's an interesting look into BoJack's psyche. We've already implied a lot of these things in the past, but just hearing it play out in his mind, it has a different impact than just inferring it based on his behavior.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, it's a very tough episode to watch on an emotional level, but just as a general BoJack Horseman episode, it's very good, even great, but maybe not necessarily the best if we compare it to previous episodes like Downer Ending or That's Too Much Man, or things along those lines. But there's definitely a lot to dig into here. But I guess we can just get right into the storyline. I think the BoJack Hollyhock Beatrice storyline is the big headliner here. And it just throws you right into it because like the first lines that you hear is just BoJack calling himself a piece of shit over and over again. Like
Yeah.
that's how he wakes up, and that is basically a self-loathing that a lot of people feel, and then you go right into like his lack of self-control being a product of that. Yes, like it seems funny, like right, he has cookies in front of him. Oh, this is not breakfast. Please stop eating cookies.
Stop!
Eat it.
Don't you eat that cookie
Yeah.
and eating it?
Then-
Why did you do that?
I can't believe you ate that
me.
cookie.
Yeah, it's so relatable.
Literally
Yeah.
ate brownies for breakfast this morning.
But yeah, like the juxtaposition, right, of like it's portrayed as something funny, but at the same time, that whole lack of self-control is why he gets himself into a lot of the issues that end up haunting him throughout the show. It's because of self-control that appears in little things like that, but also ends up showing itself in greater things like his addictions, and that's also shown over the course of the episode. But it begins on that lighter note, so I did like that, easing you into it. Then we get a shot of Hollyhock asking milk for the baby. The baby is a new introduction to this episode. Then Hollyhock is asking for the car, and BoJack goes through his inner monologue of like, well, if I leave her alone with Hollyhock, what will happen? And so then in the middle of doubting Hollyhock, he calls himself a piece of garbage once again. He also thinks about how his mom will poison his daughter. So again, just like another thing here, another sign of depression that it hits you right with is just like thinking, well, what will happen if I do this? And you go straight to the worst case scenario, and that keeps you from doing a lot of things. Or just in this small case, he's like hesitant to even respond or to even make a decision as small as that, because you just you get stuck in that circle of what will happen. Of course, eventually he just goes out and gets drunk instead of actually doing anything. But how do you? I'm sorry if I'm talking too much here, but just like the intro in general, it like throws a lot at you at once. I feel like it was a more jam-packed intro than normal. Did you guys feel that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it just like introduces this new, well, not new, but like, you know, new to us sort of like mentality and new sort of voice, and I don't think it really like dragged or really like, I don't know, wasn't quote unquote pleasant to watch. I thought like it was good. It was a good setup to the episode and like what the core of the episode is about.
Right. I think that, yeah, it's like going very fast paced, and it definitely like throws you right into the framing device of the show, like this inner monologue, and it repeats itself right after the intro. He wakes up again to just thinking stupid piece of shit, like just like hammering home that this is basically his life in a nutshell, and they have time for the joke of him trying to push his mom away, and she keeps coming back.
It's nice, like how it's on a slant. Yeah, that was like pretty funny and sad at the same time.
That was funny.
Yeah.
And then just pushing her to the wall, and she doesn't really care. It's just like, wait, this should be painted.
Yeah.
But then then we go right back into it. Hollyhock is inviting BoJack to stay and eat breakfast with them. BoJack's like, no, thanks for the invitation, but no. And he just goes and parks on the shoulder of a highway, and even thinks to himself, what are you doing here? Go home. You're a terrible person. But once again, we see that his way to cope is isolation, and that's like just a textbook example of what you end up doing when you're in that situation of self-loathing. Nice touch to end that little scene with the guy driving by, asshole, and he's like,
he gets it.
Yeah, yeah, you take it as confirmation, I guess, but eventually he does go back, and he finds out that they're still dealing with the baby. Hollyhock is trying to get Beatrice to feel that she's doing the right thing. But BoJack is against this. You shouldn't indulge her delusions. It's an interesting take as well, like hidden in all this, on just how to treat people with these mental illnesses, like how much you should be really dealing with their view of the world versus imposing reality onto them.
I don't feel like that's why BoJack was like doing what he was doing, though, because he was like clearly very, very uncomfortable with how nice she was being to the doll, and like how mad it was making him that like he felt like she never was that way to him. So like, how dare she be so kind to like an inanimate object when she was never that way with him growing up.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's treated more directly like later in the episode when he starts thinking about like, wait, well, why wasn't she like this to me when I was little, right? But and Sam, how do you feel about this whole like letting Beatrice think this baby is real and treating it like a real thing?
I mean, it obviously comforts her. So,
yeah,
like,
there's no harm in it.
Yeah, there's no harm in it, but of course, BoJack doesn't really see it that way. He thinks,
he takes it personally.
Yeah, he takes it personally, which, I mean, personally, I would probably be that way too, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, like, kids who were, like, abused and neglected and stuff, like, if you see your parent, act, some type of way towards, like, another, child figure, if inanimate or not, it's like, why wasn't it like that for me? Like, why couldn't you love me that much? Like Michelle was saying. So, in a way, like, BoJack's reaction to this is, like, while it's exaggerated, I think it does, like, hit a really real place of, like, jealousy and resentment and anger and hurt and pain and, like, yeah.
Yeah, I want to agree with that. I think BoJack is completely justified in feeling jealous, even if he's like, am I really jealous of a doll? It's like, yeah, but, like, that makes sense given what we know of your relationship with your mom. Like, you wanted her to love you, and she didn't. She loves this doll, and it's not fair. Like, it would hurt to see that.
Yeah, and he's still, like, an asshole for fucking throwing it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Out the balcony, but, like, still, like, the emotions behind it are, like, really real, and, like, people feel that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was like a very high moment of the episode, just seeing how it ends up getting to the point where he's like pretending to give back the baby and then he's juggling it. And then just with like the most very malicious intent, just throwing it off the balcony. You see Beatrice screaming at the window, like in pain, really. And it, like, even though it's fake, but like you can understand the emotions she's going through and just how asshole-ish BoJack is, and the fact that he realizes it immediately, like right after he does it. I mean, first he says, "What a nice throw," but like after seeing that and everybody walking away, he's just a piece of shit asshole. But like it's just his impulsiveness, like really shines there, and also it's interesting in the middle of that when Beatrice screams like, "You're unfit to be a parent," like his internal monologue is just, "She's right," but like, that's an interesting thing, too, just seeing how the cycle continues, right? Even though he knows that she was a bad parent in the past, but he hasn't exactly developed any qualities that would suggest he would be any different if he had his own child.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I also kind of wonder, maybe this is going out on a limb a little bit, but like, because his mom did criticize him a lot when he was growing up and always like said what he was doing was wrong and he wasn't like good enough. Do you think like a lot of like his like bad internal monologue of like beating himself up just like comes from like stuff his mom said? Like more than anything?
Well, Sam, how do you feel about that?
I mean, stuff like that, I guess, like, can contribute to, internal monologue, but it's like stuff his mom said, stuff his dad said. I mean, not like specific stuff they said, but just like how they treated him and how worthless they made him feel. And, that's definitely like the root of pretty much everything wrong with BoJack. But I think also, there's been stuff more throughout like the course of his life that have happened that like sort of set in stone like how like quote unquote like proof of how much of a piece of shit he is, right?
Yeah.
Like how he reacted with Herb when he got fired, or like the whole thing with Sarah Lynn, and just stuff like that just sort of reinforces everything that my parents said about me was right. I am worthless and a piece of shit, and I'm never gonna be happy or be good or anything.
And then it ends up being like a loop, right? Because you think that you're this asshole who pushes everybody away, but then you end up acting like that, and you end up just like repeating what people have said about you, and it just you end up stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
And that demonstrates itself later when he goes to drink at the bar, and that this is pretty much the dialogue he has himself. You're making your daughter hate you, but that's good because look at Charlotte and Herb and Sarah Lynn. It's because you made them love you that you ended up hurting them. So like that's his thought process as it's developed over the course of the show. Is the fact that because he acts this way is why these things happen to him, but then he ends up feeling sorry for himself, feeling that he's not worth that love, and that just makes it all the more difficult to end up developing a relationship in the future because you've internalized that form of thought. But
yeah, for sure. Like I think BoJack's one of his biggest struggles is the fact that he wants like people to like him and love him so much, but he also doesn't think he's like a good enough person to deserve that in any way, shape, or form. So whenever anyone like gets close to that, his only like line of defense is to push them away or to be really awful.
Now it's interesting here because right after he gets drunk, he decides, "Oh, Diane, I can talk to her." Right?
Yeah.
So he ends up going to Mr. Peanut Butter's house. They have an interesting dialogue. But BoJack even though he's drunk, he seems to have enough light to know that he doesn't want Diane to see him like this, like that drunk. And that detail stood out to me, if only because like it shows that even though in his internal monologue he like doesn't want people to love him, but at the same time he knows that he still has an impact on other people, and he is when he has his moments of clarity, he does make some effort to avoid situations where he might end up messing things up. It doesn't always work, but at least in this small situation, it ends up being for the better. But and yeah, Mr. Peanut Butter lets out like, why don't I make like Eddie Money and take you home tonight? And BoJack has a drunk conversation. No, I'm Eddie Money.
Yeah.
But so random 80s music reference.
But I hate Eddie Money. I hate his ones. I think it's his song, "The 2 Tickets to Paradise." I hate that song so much because it's like, oh, the paradise, it's his dick. God.
Oh.
It's not really his dick.
Wow.
Like, it's like less like straightforward than that, but it's obviously, we're gonna fuck tonight. So anyway, back to the show.
And I believe "Taking Me Home Tonight" also has to do with this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Eddie Money just wrote like flimsy metaphorical sex songs.
Man, it was the 80s. Everybody was writing music about sex.
I mean, people are still writing music about sex. People are just more straightforward about it these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back then they hit it in stuff like Sledgehammer and When Doves Cry. But anyways, so Mr. Peanut Butter joins BoJack in this quest to find the baby. I do enjoy that they use the dog joke again here. He's literally sniffing out the baby. He makes jokes about Beatrice smelling like sage and or wood and things like that. It's like, nah.
Oh yeah, it's like that's smell humor. It's like, okay, that must be like a total dog thing to joke about that.
Yeah. And also, like, while they're looking, BoJack is just thinking to himself, without a care in the world, how does he do it? And that's also a thing we've seen in the past with BoJack towards Mr. Peanut Butter. That part of his resentment towards him has always been like, why is he always happy? Like, as it was expressed more in the game show episode, right? But while he's thinking that, they end up finding at Felicity Huffman's house. So we got this is the celebrity cameo of the episode. We get the revelation that she's the one who lives below BoJack, and that she's the one who gets all the stuff he throws over the balcony.
Great.
Yeah.
I would love to be her.
I feel like in the past, like they've thrown like matches and started fires.
Yeah, they have.
Like,
I was just watching that episode the other day. It's like a season 2.
Yeah, so like, has her house burned down?
So
and
many
treasures right there. But in any case, she is rightfully annoyed at BoJack for receiving his regurgitated cotton candy and things of that nature. So she shuts the door on him. You're a real piece of shit, you know that? And BoJack's just like, yes.
Oh.
Of course I know.
But then they end up getting another knock in, and she responds again, and Mr. Peanut Butter serves as a mediator. They manage to get the doll back in exchange for BoJack doing an arc on FHBA, which is also a show referenced in the Todd plotline. They never say what FHBA stands for, right?
No, they don't. You will find out though, listeners.
Okay. Good. But yeah. So BoJack has to return to television. Speaking of that, we haven't had an Ethan around thing yet, so interesting. But
Yeah, what happened to that?
I have no idea.
yeah, he's just gonna do another television show.
Yeah, like fuck Ethan around. I hope that guy just like fucks back off to Olympia or wherever in fucking Washington he is. God.
Whoa.
Ethan.
Shots fired at Olympia.
Shots fired.
But, I'm sure Olympia is very nice. I've actually never been there.
Yeah. So, but they celebrate in quotation marks by going back to the Valley Bar that BoJack always goes to. And even Mr. Peanut Butter's confused, like, why are we here?
Yeah.
And BoJack, while he's with Mr. Peanut Butter, is thinking to himself, like, what if I kill myself by throwing myself off the balcony? Mr. Peanut Butter knows you're terrible, even him as stupid as he is. Like while he's next to Mr. Peanut Butter, that's just like another thing that, like, at least to me was very relatable. Just the fact that even if you have someone supportive next to you, but if you're stuck in that thing, you can't really process positivity coming into you when you're at your worst like that. But and also it's an interesting exchange they have here of BoJack saying concerning Hollyhock, like, I can feel her getting attached, and I just know I'm gonna BoJack things up. Peanut Butter tries to be supportive, but he's like saying, "Oh, you mean be the life of the party?" But then this time, don't do the thing that makes her hate you. BoJack responds like, "I don't deserve that kind of love," and Mr. Peanut Butter responds, "What I've seen, everybody deserves to be loved." And I don't know, it was a bit of a heartwarming thing, especially like BoJack. He doesn't really respond to that line immediately. He just kind of mulls it over. And I think it's a message that while it's simple, but at times you need to hear something like that, because you refuse any positive energy when you're in that situation, and you think that, well, why are they going to spend it on me? It's not like I'm going to do anything with it. But people like Mr. Peanut Butter, even in the last episodes of season 3, when he was talking with Todd, right? Mr. Peanut Butter was like, he's in a dark place. Like, he recognizes BoJack's struggles, and it seems that even though he is kind of dumb at times, but he knows enough to know how to talk to BoJack in this lower situation, it seems. I don't know if you guys feel anything about how Mr. Peanut Butter handled the situation, or if it's in character with what he's usually like with around him.
I think it's in character. I mean, and I do agree, like, it is like maybe a simple message, but like it is really important. And I honestly, like, as many things as BoJack has done to dig himself into this hole, I mean, yeah, he does still deserve love. I think that's something he's going to have to figure out how to be okay with himself. And he's got a lot of unresolved things to kind of deal with before I think he's going to get to a place where, like, he really believes that he can be and that he deserves that. But, like, yeah, no, I think that's pretty in line for Mr. Peanut Butter. Like, Mr. Peanut Butter has, like, a pretty good heart. Like, he's not, like, he's not, like, the sharpest crayon, you know, but, like, he does his heart's in the right place, and he is trying to be really supportive. I think he, like, gets that BoJack's, like, really not in a good place, even if, like, he's not hella perceptive about it.
Yeah, so I think he's doing the best with what he can, and it comes from a good place, but who knows if that ends up having an effect on BoJack, because then we move on to this final scene, which to me hit the hardest, because just like his inner monologue going into super overdrive as he gives back the baby and sees Hollyhock outside, and he's just like considering like, well, do I talk to her? Well, what do I do here? He's like, drink first. No, you're ruining her. You know that, right? And then there's the imagery of Hollyhock drowning, which is a thing we see very often in this show. Like BoJack's been in underwater several times in this show, and just like him, like seeing that might happen to Hollyhock if he treats her the wrong way. And then just this, like at least to me, the impressive ending is like your poison is in her already. That's not true. Yeah, it is. You stupid piece of shit. You destroy people. That's why your mother never loved you. That's why Sarah Lynn died. That's why Charlotte will never forgive you. What are you going to do with a Hollyhock? What are you going to do, asshole? Shut up. But like that is basically how you think in those situations. Like it comes flooding at you, and sometimes you just don't have the energy to stop it, and you bring up all the mistakes and errors that you've made in the past, and you're just in a place where you don't know what to do. Even something as simple here, like BoJack just getting up from his chair and talking to Hollyhock, but he's afraid what effect that will have just based on whatever comes out of his mouth. But yeah, so at least to me, like that part affected me the most. Like I've watched that scene like three or four times, and I get goosebumps every time I watch it. But maybe that's just because I have a personal connection to it. I don't know, you guys, just how do you feel about this? Well, also at the end, he talks to Hollyhock, right? And Hollyhock asks, so like, I sometimes have the voice that everybody hates you, you're ugly. That voice, it goes away, right? And like the way the episode ends, like the music gets louder, the music that's been playing throughout all the monologue, and BoJack just responds, yeah. But like, at least to him, he feels that he's lying because he knows that it hasn't gone away for him yet. But how do you guys feel just about this entire ending scene in general, or like how it, like, do you feel like it's a wrap up? Has he improved? Has he gotten worse? Or where is BoJack in this situation? Sam, how do you feel?
I mean, I have to agree with like BoJack's perspective here. Like, it doesn't go away. At least, like, you know, it doesn't go away on its own. Like, you kind of gotta work at like self-esteem and that kind of shit. But I don't know. I think that was like. Also, BoJack broke his promise. He said he wasn't going to lie to Hollyhock again, and he
That's
did.
True. That's
so,
true.
You know, what a stupid piece of shit, right? No, but I think, you know, there's like a lot of truth in that, and like a lot of truth in, you know, people who are, you know, struggling themselves and like struggling with, you know, feeling like, you know, pieces of shit for, you know, maybe like not like the first times in their lives, but, you know, they're like younger than you. And it's like, you know, they want hope that things are going to get better. And, you know, sometimes, I guess, you know, it's, I don't know, like, not hopeful, but, like, more beneficial for, like, the older person in the situation, like, give advice that it is going to get better. But when in reality, they kind of know that it isn't. I don't know, it was real, and I felt it. And feeling worthless and ugly and stupid is not just a teenage girl emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I guess the situation here as well is like, you realize that not like, for some people it may be just that, like it may be just hormones, but you can't like, you can't just assume that it's going to go away because you don't know the person. Like in this case with BoJack with Hollyhock, how long has he known her? Like a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So like you can't really say for her that it is going to go away, because you know for some people it's that way, some people it isn't, and like I guess also he wants to avoid the wanting to explain that, so he just really like cuts it off with, yeah, sure, it goes away, whatever. But like because he's not really in a situation to talk about that self-reflection with Hollyhock at that moment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, after he just had like that crazy internal like thought like breakdown, like he definitely isn't in a good place to be like, well, like it can get better if you like learn better coping mechanisms and know it's like he's not there yet himself. So there's no way he can really give her advice on it yet. But I really liked this ending scene because, like, I don't know, I really like Hollyhock, and like I like that I think it helps when she's asking like when you disappear, like where do you go? And like he is really upfront and honest about that stuff. At least like he's like, yeah, I just kind of like pull over. Sometimes I go drink. Like sometimes I just don't go anywhere. And I don't know. I think like having her ask him like reminds him that she it does like what he does, like even if he's like trying to like not be around her so that he'll screw something up, like even his absence is having like kind of an effect on her, and it like bothers her, and she doesn't really know what's going on because he doesn't say a lot. It's all kind of in his head, so she really like doesn't have a lot of an idea of like who he is yet. So I don't know, I liked that aspect of it too.
Yeah, definitely. Like the fact that he admits he isolates himself really, but also he has to explain like if I'm shitty, it's just because I'm shitty.
Yeah,
it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
And that is an issue that like people like at least in my family like I like when I was in that situation, I could tell that my parents were like worried that they were doing something wrong. Like, well, why wasn't I getting better? And at some point they did express that, right? Like, what did we do? But it's because because you don't talk or you don't express, you just end up leaving the people around you confused, and that is something that people have to keep in mind, even in that situation. Like in your attempts to not hurt people, you might accidentally end up hurting people.
Yeah.
So, but it's just all around it. It treat like this side of the episode. It treated so many topics around just how the depressed and the self-loathing think, that it was a really astounding part of it. But yeah, and also before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to the music that's used throughout, like "Blood in the Cut" by K-Flay, in case anybody wants to look that up, and it plays it for the actual lyrics in the credits. But yeah, just all in all, a very strong part of the episode. But now I guess we'll move on to a bit of the laughs part of the episode, which is the Princess Carolyn, Todd, Diane side of the story. I think this part is what keeps the episode from being like like the best episode, just because I think this part has a bit more spots to drag. I don't think we'll go into like beat by beat, but just were you guys entertained all the way through, or do you think what spot could you identify as like the low part and the high part? Michelle, we'll go to you there.
Well, when Carolyn and Rutabaga Rabinowitz were like planning the wedding, it was like okay, but it wasn't like super exciting. And like, I don't know, maybe the fact that we kept jumping from like Todd to Diane to like Princess Carolyn, like we weren't consistently focusing on one person the whole B plot. And so that way, like, it was hard to find like a very like, cause like Todd's was nice. Like he's like, oh, like asexuals can get married. Like, oh, you can still be romantic or you can be aromantic. Yeah, I don't think I want to do the wedding anymore. Like that's great. But like, it doesn't give you like a lot to work with. And like Princess Carolyn, like, at the very end of the episode, we find out she's pregnant, which is like a huge thing, but like it's just like that one moment and then it's gone. So yeah, I guess like maybe part of the issue of what makes this drag is that they keep jumping from character to character. But I don't know. I thought Diana's monologue about weddings was interesting, but again, like I feel like we didn't get enough of any one of these characters to really fill out that B plot in a very like nice, like conclusive sort of way to like accomplish a certain feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if this is an issue with with just this season or with the show in general, but I feel like, as you mentioned, big moments for the non-BoJack characters have been going way too fast because, like, for example, the asexuality thing, right? Because in the first episode, that was touched for like 30 seconds in the diner, and then that was it.
Yeah, that was it. They didn't even say it by name. It was just implied.
Yeah, you made up for it with the whole Todd-centric episode, and you had a decent climax there, but then here again, like, it's touched for that one scene, and then that's about it, mostly. And same thing with Princess Carolyn, because you had the miscarriage thing in episode 1, and that was treated for like what a minute at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
and it didn't have the time to land. So, but I don't know if that's just this season, or has that been the case in the show before, that it just doesn't let these moments breathe. Sam, do you feel that these things are going too fast? Or
I definitely think so. That's like my big complaint about the season. It's like the pacing just feels super off, and it feels like it's going way too fast. In terms of like the show general, I don't think it's really had this much of a problem. I think the thing is, at least for me, it's the year and a half time jump. We may be focused on it in episode 1 and 2, and, barely at that, and, that's it. Now BoJack's back in LA, and he has, like, his daughter shit to deal with.
And his mom shit shortly after that.
Yeah, and his mom shit, and now, like, we got, like, the governor shit, and, like, Todd shit, and Princess Carolyn shit.
Oh, man, that's such a good point.
Just a lot of shit to deal with. And, like, I feel like, we could have just, taken a breath there, and I definitely feel like they kind of felt like they maybe wrote themselves into a corner at the end of last season, or maybe it was just like, the promotional material lying or something. It just feels like it's going way too fast. And I definitely agree, at least in this season, that, these like what are supposed to be like, big moments, like, a miscarriage, or like, Todd deciding that he doesn't want to get married, or just like stuff like that, that doesn't have room to like really exist. It's just like, oh, bam, 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 go, go, go.
Yeah, and I think an issue also is, like, it feels the need to, like, touch on every single main character every episode. Because, like, for example, Diane here, while the speech is fine and all, but I don't think that I think that the episode would have functioned well enough without, like, that little cutaway there.
Oh, for sure. That was not necessary. It was interesting, but it was not necessary at all.
And maybe it was just like, they wrote these like little monologue nuggets, and they were like, oh, we gotta use it somewhere.
Gotta use the nuggets. Where can we shove those in?
Right, but yeah, I just think that like every episode, like now they feel the need to touch on every character, but because of that, you leave yourself with less time to sufficiently treat their plot lines. So it's it moves very fast this side of the episode. But also we touched on Rutabaga Rabinowitz. We haven't seen him for a while. How do we feel about his return for at least one episode? Like him being now a bit more of a family man, but still like the go-getter agent with lots of quick lines.
You know what? He betrayed Princess Carolyn in season 2 or whatever. I'm over him. Yeah. He's done.
I'm over him too. I didn't mind him in this episode. I just don't think we see him again for the rest of the season. But like, yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, he's still kind of an asshole. It's a good thing you're not a mother, Princess Carolyn. You'd be so bad at it. It's like, what the fuck, man? Who says that?
That hurt. And actually, related to that, also we have Judah in this episode, and at least for me, the ending stuck out a little bit because, like, after Rutabaga says that and he walks out, and Judah is like immediately, "Do you want to get rid of him?"
Yeah, I have ways. What kind of ways? Well, I could just tell him to his face not to come back.
Yeah, and like he mentions that he doesn't like people like that who only care about themselves, and then he talks about Princess Carolyn. No, I don't think you're like that.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
For what it's worth, you'll be a wonderful mother. And I like that little ending just because like I feel that's the most character we've gotten out of Judah so far in this show. Like usually he's mostly used for deadpan, but like here at least he's mentioning a little more about his likes and dislikes. But do we have any theories for reasons why he is it just because Rutabaga is an asshole, or do you feel there's something behind the whole wanting to get rid of him quickly?
I don't know. Maybe he just likes Princess Carolyn. Maybe he's just like, oh, you're my friend. That guy's a dick. He shouldn't be like talking to you like that.
Yeah, it could have just been an impulse thing.
Yeah, so extension of the relationship they have, which I like, the fact that at least they're giving Judah a bit more emotion. so that's nice. And then, we have the positive pregnancy test at the end, so I guess we'll go more into the whole baby plotline that they've been slowly dripping throughout these past couple of episodes. There's a lot of good lines in this whole thing. For example, let's hear. For those who are following the NFL, who has just started, Rutabaga is like, "Is someone looking for Sebastian Janikowski? Because here's the kicker." I think that was a really niche joke. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Also, when they're talking about Meryl Streep playing everybody in a movie, Judah's like, "Are you suggesting a Nutty Professor 2 The Clumps situation?"
I vaguely got that reference, but not Like,
yeah. I feel like Eddie Murphy has done several of these movies where he plays a bunch of characters.
Yeah, there's at least 2 of them. There might be more.
Yeah, I feel like Norbit is also like that. But also, Rutabaga mentions all the greats have done it. Peter Sellers, Sir Alec Guinness, Flo from the Progressive Ads.
Flo.
I'm not. Are those Progressive Ads still playing? The ones where she plays everybody?
I don't know. I know she's still in the ads, probably.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like the ads where she played everybody, I feel like that was 2 years ago, so that felt like a little old joke, but so yeah, we have that, and we have Todd changing Diane's metaphor to that of a Tootsie Pop with nothing in the middle.
It kind of works, even though like Rupert Witz is like, that you still up for the Tootsie Roll, like that's pretty good, or a lollipop. And it's like, yeah, but it wouldn't have worked.
Okay, in my opinion, it depends on what kind of Tootsie Pop you have. Because if you have like a brown Tootsie Pop, then it's like, okay, cool, I like that Tootsie in the middle. But like if you have like a red one or like an orange one, it's like, maybe not.
That actually sounds better to me than the chocolate one. I'm not a fan of those.
Really?
Yeah, I think the fruit ones are like way better, or like the vanilla ones.
Maybe just give me some just Tootsie Rolls by themselves. I'll be good.
Yeah, no surprises, just straightforward.
Yeah, this candy has too much variety for the analogy to work.
Yeah, when you really dig into
What if they made like a bubblegum one? Then again, I don't like bubblegum.
They do! They have bubblegum lollipops and they suck! Because the gum's not good gum. It's like shitty gum, and that's why it's in a lollipop and not like normal gum on a shelf.
Yeah, I remember having the bubblegum Tootsie Pop.
Yeah, you can't really blow bubbles with that. It doesn't work. It's not very good.
Nah. It like gets stuck in your teeth instead of chewing properly. So yeah, it's not
with textures all around.
So yeah, and I guess finally just the whole usage of Rotsy, Diane's friend. She's just there to like talk, I guess, but in the end they don't actually end up talking.
Yeah, what was the point of that? Like, I understand. Like, so we're commenting on Diane actually being a shitty friend because that doesn't go anywhere, and we haven't seen her being a shitty friend like much before. So like, what was the point?
Well, actually, my thing is that we've seen this joke done before, because I feel like we've had Diane Rotsy conversations in the diner that go nowhere, too.
Yeah,
like,
we did.
Example, yeah, like Rotsy is like, why are you staying with BoJack? And then Diane just totally ignores her, like complaining about the water or something like that. So they've done this same exact joke before.
I see. I haven't seen the last season since it came out, so it's hard for me to remember this side character even existed before. But
I don't even remember what episode it was. But
yeah.
It was like, Diane was complaining that there was a drought and they shouldn't serve water in the diner instead of answering Roxy's questions, and it was just like, yeah.
Oh, that case, why did they do the exact same joke then? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's like bringing Rotsy in just for that. I mean, I don't know, like. The speech with Todd is fine, but like the whole Rotsy framing thing, like it just doesn't make sense. And I feel bad because I feel like you could dig something in there, like Diane having forgotten about Rotsy and Rotsy like still making an effort to there's something there, but they just don't really feel like going beyond Diane's a shitty friend.
Yeah. But, maybe Sam's right though. Maybe like the writers just like love the wedding monologue as a nugget, and they just want to use that nugget. But like, well, after she helps him, how do we end that? How do we close out that scene? It can't be that uplifting. It has to be funny. And they're like, oh, well, I guess that we can make a joke about how she's a bad friend to the other person. Okay, let's do that.
Or maybe they like couldn't figure out any other character to give it to besides Diane because she's having marriage problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely that part definitely does feel like foreshadowing because you've had the whole like tension between Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, and she's talking about how marriages are based on a lie, based on truth, and that the belief in it is more important than the thing itself, unless you don't believe in it anymore. So like just hinting at Diane like starting to forget why she fell in love with Mr. Peanut Butter in the first place, sort of thing.
Just don't get married.
Yeah.
Just say fuck it, divorce costs money and just don't get married.
Yeah, just cohabitate. Forget about the tax breaks.
Yeah, fuck taxes. Those are like for government swine who want to suck your soul, so just fucking get married.
Hashtag government swine should be the official hashtag of this podcast.
Sure. So we'll end on that note. Hashtag cohabitation. But so yeah, well, we'll be. I guess all in all, just this is a really good episode. But do we think it's the best of the season?
No.
No. You, Michelle?
Well, I know Sam's watched all the episodes, and if she says no, that makes me feel
Well,
like there might be better things coming.
I'm just saying so far.
So far, yeah, no, I think episode 2 is still my favorite.
Exactly, episode
overall.
2 is the best so far.
Yeah.
I'd agree too. Like putting my personal biases aside for this episode, I think the old Sugarman House, just because it's more focused.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, the B plot is kind of what drags us down because it is kind of unfocused. Like it's focused in like marriage, I guess, like broadly, but in characters not so much.
Yeah, it jumps around too much. But if this episode was just the A plot, I would consider it much higher. But yeah. So on that note, we'll wrap up here. Next time around, we'll be discussing the next episodes of BoJack Horseman. The 7th episode is titled Underground, and we also have the 8th one coming up, The Judge. Ooh. So more simpler titles.
Sam said, "Ooh."
Ominous.
Underground is ominous, Sam.
Mm-hmm. Dun dun dun.
Okay. So yeah, you can find out all the info about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. We want to give thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Phoenician, aka Fusion. And we want to give thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Andy, and yours truly. You can stay tuned for our continuing coverage of BoJack's 4th season. We will also have podcasts coming out soon on the latest episode of Rick and Morty, the Rick Lantis Mix-Up. Or they might have already come out by the time this one comes out. But so yeah, all in all, any final thoughts before we leave here?
I need a Meryl Streep garden.
Apparently they're really good. Yeah,
some topiaries with her head on it. Just I gotta get into
some creative decorating ideas right there.
Yeah, get into that.
I don't know if it was you or Andy who predicted that was Meryl Streep in it was you, right? So okay, so points to you for predicting that in the trailer.
Thanks. I know her face.
Meryl Streep. I think the moral of the story: Meryl Streep is a national treasure. There we go.
P.S. I think she's kind of overrated, to be honest. I think even like she is probably like, you know what? Calm down, guys. I'm not like the queen or whatever. I'm just an actress.
Meryl Streep in the 90s, good. Meryl Streep in the 2000s, overrated.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So on those Meryl Streep observations, we will bid you adieu. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time. Adios.
Bye.
Bye.